now, Republican strategist Gianno Caldwell and president of the San Diego chapter of the National Action Network, the Reverend Shane Harris. Gianno, Shane, thanks for being here.
Good to be back.
Glad to be with you.
It's always good to see both of you gentlemen. Shane, I want to start with you today. I want to start with the question of the day. You heard it in the introduction. Hillary Clinton claimed she lost the election because of many things, including angry people, xenophobia, Islamophobia, women who live in the suburbs, and racism. Shane, is racism really why Hillary Clinton lost the election?
Well, first of all, I think that we have to identify the kind of America we live in. People are saying we're post-racial, when in reality we're not. Clearly, hate crimes and tons of other things have continued to show that. What happened to LeBron James just a few days ago continued to show that we're not in a post-racial society. So, yes, she is correct on that angle, that racism and misogyny and all of these things that President Trump was pushing during his campaign clearly show and identify that racism is still a reality in this country and that it won the election.
Wait a second. Gianno, let me turn to you. I mean, I don't know of anybody, and you can tell me the names if you know them, who's arguing that we live in a post-racial America. I think we know that there are people who are racist, there are people who are misogynist, there are people who are Islamophobic. I mean, we live in America, there's hundreds of millions of people, there are some bad people that live among us. But did racism actually cause Hillary Clinton to lose?
Certainly not, and honestly, Liz, your intro was really my full talking point, so thank you for stating my point. If racism did, in fact, win the election, then we must look at those 200-plus counties in which President Trump won, that Obama won in 08 and 012, that flipped for President Trump. So if you want to paint that picture, I mean, it's fairly disgusting. But I think at this point, I'm going to say something that's going to be pretty shocking to the viewers. I think that we must have some compassion for Hillary Clinton. At this point, she's dealing with a very serious disease, and that disease is called sore loser-itis. I mean, at this point, she's blaming everyone but herself, and this is truly coming from the Gianno Caldwell Journal of Medicine. This sore loser-itis makes you scapegoat everyone, makes you take no responsibility for the lies in which she told countlessly about the email scandal, saying that there was not classified material ever delivered when we saw time and time again that there was. So when you think about any number of scenarios that played out during the course of this election, for her to say that she had no responsibility in losing her campaign, not even just a little bit, sore loser-itis, I'm telling you. That's
and that's the angle that I'm coming at. I would disagree that this had nothing to do with her. Obviously, Democrats have a lot of work to do. There's a lot of rebuilding to do in the party. And we have to all really be a part of that process. But I think on the other side, we have to deal with the fact that what she's saying is correct if she's not going to say that the reason why she lost was because of it. No, there was many things that played a role in this. She's correct on the angle that it's still a reality in this country and that, yes, a lot of this election had to do with racism and misogyny and all these things that President Trump was posing, but it also had a tremendous amount of things to do with what she was doing and what the Democratic Party was doing, which in some ways was being a contradiction. So
right, Reverend Shane, let me interrupt just for a second, because I don't think that's what Hillary Clinton said. I don't disagree with your point that there's still racism and racial divide in our country. Anyone can see that. If
and
they
being
have two
pushed
eyes.
by the Democratic Party.
Right,
and Hillary Clinton
wait a second.
herself.
But that's not what Hillary Clinton said, so don't put words in her mouth. What she said was that racism was one of the reasons that she lost the election. She said, I take responsibility for all the decisions that I made, but that's not why I lost. And then she listed reasons that she lost. But let me ask you this. You keep making accusations that President Trump peddled misogyny and racism during his campaign. Hillary Clinton at one point, several years ago, called young black people super predators.
Yeah.
Do you not feel that that is racist?
Oh, no, we totally opposed that and totally spoke out against that. Like I said, this is
racist, though?
In both parties, this is a racism issue. Blacks have been left out of the conversation in both sides. But I think we have to deal with the fact.
Is Hillary Clinton racist?
That is a racist comment. It does not mean that someone's racist. You can say certain things and not be that. We cannot make people in whole what they say. We have to go by people's character
certain things
and their
and he
intentions.
wasn't. President Trump said certain things and he wasn't. It may have been some questionable comments, but he wasn't racist.
President Trump has posed.
I don't believe he's racist.
No, wait a second. If you can say things.
He has stood with those who were in the KKK. He has stood with this kind of representation.
Reverend Shane, just a moment. I want to go back to what you said. I can't let this go. No, I want to go back to what you said. I
So
can't let this
Hillary-
go. So if you can say something that other people deem to be racist, but that doesn't make you a racist person, why did the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals say that President Trump's campaign rhetoric, before he even issued his executive order on the travel ban, why did that make him discriminatory towards Muslims if a comment doesn't make someone racist? That is a huge double standard.
We're not dealing with what legislation or what happens in the courts. We're dealing with what somebody says. And Trump has clearly stood with KKK folks who endorsed his campaign, and he endorsed them.
So,
he stood with the alt-right.
Senator Byrd,
He has spoken
who is
out about
Senator
his
Byrd?
support of
Liz?
that kind of system.
Do we know who that person is? Senator Byrd, the former Klansman? That was Senator Byrd, wasn't it? The former Klansman that Hillary Clinton said was her mentor?
But he's in
Didn't
support.
she get advice?
But Mr. Trump is in support of that. So we can't make this a two-part.
Let's be very clear, Shane. If we're going to deal with racism, if we're going to deal with racism, then we must both acknowledge, you and I both, Shane, that black lives didn't matter to Hillary Clinton, black votes matter to Hillary Clinton.
So let me ask you this,
when she said that
Gianna,
black men were super predators, she meant that.
We have seen
she
hate
didn't
crimes
change her
the
mind
rise.
on that.
Where has Trump dealt with whites and said that they were terrorists, but yet he's quick to jump on a Muslim or an African American and say that they're terrorists? But when a white does a crime,
I've never heard him call a black person a terrorist. And I've never heard him call a Muslim that was call a Muslim terrorist that wasn't actually a terrorist.
But he's
that
called
hadn't
these
committed
things hate
a terrorist
crimes.
act.
He speaks out against these things, the terrorist act and hate crimes. But what about whites who are actually doing these things?
What about
He's
it?
not dealing
Wait a
with it.
second. I mean, I can clear this up. I can clear this up if you let me speak for just one moment. I mean, everyone on both sides of the aisle called Dylan Roof a domestic terrorist. That was a white person who targeted black people because they were black. It was a horrendous tragedy, a hate crime, and everyone, no matter their political persuasion, called that individual a terrorist.
How about the recent lieutenant who served this country, an African-American male in the Midwest who was killed by a white man, and he was a part of an all-white group? Did Mr. Trump speak out on that? Have others spoke out on that? No.
Gianno, go ahead. We're almost out of time here, but last word.
A lieutenant who served this country.
Well, I'm not as familiar about that particular issue, but I can say that President Trump has spoken up on Muslims that were actually committing terrorist acts. So this wasn't like all Muslims are terrorists. Obviously, that isn't true, and that's insulting. He has not called black people terrorists. So I'm not familiar with that at all, and I'm not familiar with any evidence that have to back it up. Yes. Hate crimes, things that have actually happened.
But
crimes.
All right, gentlemen. All right, gentlemen.
Hate crime on one side and not on the other. We have to.
I mean, if you can give concrete evidence of that happening, I guess we'll have to do that next week because they're yelling at me in my ear. We're out of time. I gotta go, gentlemen. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks.